Bar to Truth with Prof JJ Tabane. We're coming to you live from the mother city tonight. We are at the District 6 campus of the CPUT. We're at the what is called the District 6 campus residence. That is in whatever is left of what was called Hanover Street. This is where people years ago were relocated forcefully without their consent and moved away from their original residence. And we thought, what a good place to start the build-up to the state of our nation this week. We'll be talking tonight to Tony Leon, who was the former DA leader as well as former South African ambassador to Argentina. Tomorrow, we talk to the chief whips of all the political parties to see what their expectations are of 2025, but specifically what their expectations are for the state of the nation that will be delivered by President Ramaphosa this Thursday. And on Wednesday, we talk to the first citizen of Cape Town, the mayor of Cape Town. It's got a lot of things that there's been in the media about. We're talking to him about that as we end our build up to the State of the Nation address. But I thought today, I'll talk a little bit about the war in the DRC. That song there, Yvonne Chaka Chaka, the Queen of Africa, who's a goodwill ambassador for the continent, just appealing for peace. Just appealing for peace. Why are we in a war that we are unlikely to win in the Democratic Republic of Congo? For those of you who may not even be aware, the DRC warring factions were here in Sun City a couple of years ago to try and find peace, but it looks like that did not bear any fruit because it's been more than 2.5 decades of war and trauma for the people of the DRC. But what is that war really about? I can tell you now without any fear of contradiction that that war is about private interests. If that country was not so mineral rich, there wouldn't be a war there. Whether the politicians and whoever else is a proxy in that war, they are all fighting over the crumbs of minerals that are in that country. And that is sad, that bodies of our soldiers, of our troops, are being used there as cannon fodder. Because politicians are protecting private interests of mining in that place. There's no other reason we are there. The reasons of diplomacy and so on have expired long ago. It's sad that we are there. We have lost 14 lives in that war, and nothing is being done as we speak now. I was thinking we're actually not going to have a show today. I thought the president would, after a 14th body, stop and talk to the nation and say, this is why we're still there, despite the body count that is rising. That hasn't happened. Hopefully it will happen. I mean, what do you know? Because before there were 23 children who died. Only then did we hear from our head of state telling us, okay, we're going to do something about this. How many soldiers must die before we hear from our government about what their intentions are? But I can tell you now, whether be it the people from Rwanda, people from South Africa, people from anywhere else who are involved in that war, they are doing that not to protect you and I, not to protect the citizens of the DRC, but to protect private interests. And what's sad is that some of these leaders themselves have a finger in the pie there in that place. And it's a war that we don't even have the capacity to conduct. I can tell you now, 2 years ago, and I'm speaking under correction, but roughly 2 years ago, there was a memorandum from the army chiefs in South Africa writing to the Minister of Defense then, Thandi Modise. Mefela Modimo Muchenya bare defense minister, ba Mucheya, ba mo fa memorandum bare mewe. We need to pull out of the DRC. There's no need for South Africa to be there. And that memo gathered dust on her desk until Ausich NG, lo no mewa Muchenya nga retire fela ba Muchenya bare defense minister. Le memorandum is at the bottom of the pile. But the army chiefs have already said, they told us before there was 14 people who died, that we need to pull out our troops out of the DRC. And their pleas has fallen onto deaf ears. But we must pull out, because here back at home, the trucks, the helicopters, the fighter jets are grounded. Because the people who are there cannot even practice because there's not enough fuel, there's not enough supplies to do so. From within that war zone, the people who are talking to their families are saying, hey, we are starving here. There's no capacity of the South African Defence Force to be in that war. So that enough is enough reason to say, let's pull out. Yesterday, as I was landing here in Cape Town, I bumped into a very senior person, an ANC veteran, who sits within the NEC, who says, but why are we in the DRC? Somebody who's in the belly of the ANC's beast. He says, why are we in the DRC? Why do we think that the war in the DRC can be solved by a barrel of a gun when it's a political solution that is needed? But when private interests are involved, logic gets out of the room. Consciousness gets out of the room. Can we bring our troops back home? There's simply no reason why we should lose one more life in the DRC. There's no political reason that can do that. If anything, we're embarrassing ourselves. You should hear in these big AU meetings when African leaders are talking about African solutions for African problems, for African solutions, and now we should be told by Europe and Western powers that please stop fighting, on Twitter streets about things that are so critical, that are so important. It's very embarrassing to see heads of states fighting in public about what needs to be done in a serious issue that is costing lives of South Africans, lives of Africans. It's actually very embarrassing. Hopefully this plea won't fall into deaf ears. Let's bring our troops back home. We've got an army that can use that 2.4 billion rand that you are spending in that war every year to make sure that at least there's fuel for our army to practice, for our fighter jets not to be grounded, for the tanks to be serviced instead of gathering dust in the barracks. Hopefully somebody can hear, as the Bible says, let those with ears to hear indeed hear. So tonight we're talking to Tony Leon, exploring the state of the nation, especially as it build up to Thursday. We'll ask what he thinks. He was part of negotiating the GNU. They brought him out of wherever he is to come and talk through establishing a new government of national unity. We'll ask him a little bit about that, how his assessment is, what he thinks should be done to build this nation going forward. Stay tuned, because after the break, Tony Leon is my guest here on Power to Truth tonight.